So he spent the bulk of his fundraising career as a Major Gifts, Leadership Gifts, annual fund officer on two over $1 billion campaigns at Cornell University and the University of California at Berkeley. He works as the Senior Vice President of Business Development at the Mexican Museum. And you can visit him at armandozumaya.com. Please join me in welcoming Armando. Thank you, Armando. One detail that you are all curious about is the handouts for this program will be available in the lobby afterwards. So thanks again.
Hey, everybody. Hi. You're supposed to say, good morning, teacher, something like that. That'd be really cute. Let's see here. A couple of housekeeping. I'm a walker-arounder. I usually will lecture from the corner and pick on you people, and no one will hide, and the guy on the laptop will be persecuted by me. But we have live streaming, so I've got to stick to my mic, so I'm sorry. I have a booming voice. This presentation's timed for an hour. 7 minutes has been chewed up, so we should get going. And a couple of things. I take live questions. Keep them concise. I can't solve your entire Major Gifts problem here on stage. But not on this slide, but on the last slide is my email. And I say this to everybody, and everyone thinks I'm kidding, but I'm not. So a year from now, 6 months from now, tomorrow, you have a question about this presentation, email me, okay? Ask me a question, because I'm very passionate about this. This is a personal hero of mine, and it's about persistence, and that's what this is all about. People say, how do you make Major Gifts happen? How do you make a $35 million gift happen? Persistence. So, and a couple of other things. That's me right there, clean out of my mind. You should see what I'm doing right now in terms of work. So I'm building a Major Gifts program from scratch to build the Mexican Museum on 3rd and Mission, a $60 million campaign. That's what I'm doing. So I've been development officer for 30 years, but I'm also kind of a freak and a mutant in the fact that I've crossed a couple of worlds. First, I started out grassroots when I had hair and I had beads and was knocking on doors, and I was in the peace movement and had a clipboard, and I was stopping underground weapons testing. This is the 80s, okay? So, and then from there, through magic and unemployment, I went and I worked for Cornell University. So I worked for Cornell, 230 development officers, $1.6 billion campaign. And talk about rock and roll. You learn how the big machine works. And from there, I thought to myself, how do I make that big machine into a little machine? And that's kind of where I came from. Also, I'm another freak in fact that I've worked in the world of prospect research, and I've worked in the world of major development. I've been a CDO, I've been a vice president, I've had hundreds of development reports, I've run major gift shops, so I'm kind of a crossover. Who knows what a prospect researcher is? Raise your hand. Hey, okay, this is decent, all right. Who here is actually a prospect researcher? Who's physically, that's their job title. You are?
That's my official job title.
All right, you get a long-range fist bump. So I'm like a psycho about prospect research, and I'll tell you why, and you'll find out why. I'm a well-known, did I write that? Smarty pants, all right. So here's the agenda. So the agenda is not, we're going to talk about getting the nonprofit that's not done major gifts to put their big toe in the water and try it and go, wow, that's awesome, and then build it. We're not talking about doing major gifts on the cheap. There's no such thing. You have to spend money to make money, okay? If you want to get this poor Teresa, she's a development officer. Are you a development officer? Darn it. Okay, where's the development officer? Sorry to dump Teresa quickly there. Okay, Summer's a development officer. To get her to do, PR, annual fund, plan giving, everything, and major gifts doesn't happen. That's BS, okay? If there's any executives, board members here, you have to spend it to make it, and we'll talk about it. But there's the agenda. Let's heck with the agenda. So the key point is that we're talking about, and I've done this before, and I do consulting, I've advised organizations with little $1 million budgets wobbling on their feet, how to start a major gifts program. And the way it is that you get a piece of your development officer's time and you devote it to major gifts. And you get them the supports through consulting to support the major gifts effort, and you get 1 or 2 big fat gifts, then you go back to your board and you say, hey, let's do this again, because we can make a lot more money if we invest in these pieces. So Like I said, this is, I got a pointer here too. So it's an upfront and transparent agreement with your boss and your board. It's saying, we're gonna try this. Because lots of boards are foundation dependent. Lots of boards and organizations love foundational work. But they have to understand that it's a staff. Normal major gifts programs are staffed. If you go to Stanford, if you go to Cornell, if you go to Berkeley, there's whole staffs that do stewardship. Okay, 9, 12 people. If you go to, there's research offices, there's APRA, there's prospect research profession, full-timers, that do this. There's major gifts officers, there's support for major gifts, there's all kinds of people. How do you replicate that in a small little nonprofit for a short term and then build it and build it and build it and build it? That's what I do, okay? So to really go big on it, you need a real investment. This is fun, I got 2 little laser pointers. I'll probably blind somebody today knowing my luck. Yeah, that would be bad. Funny story. So this is an organization I work for, Center for Public Integrity, and this is a jump drive pen. It has a jump drive in it, USB. And so I had a major gifts event, which you're about to see a story of, where they were in the box like this, and the little box of presents on top of the major gifts event. So some of the richest people in New York, including Paul Volcker, sitting there opening their presents, and I realized, you know what? They're all going to look at this little thing with the laser. They're going to be blind. So I'm like, hey, folks, don't blind yourself today. I want you to give me money. So that just occurred to me, that story. So here is the cycle. You all know the cycle, right? So the problem is your board doesn't. So they know this part, solicitation. Call rich people, ask them for money. When this is the hardest part, small nonprofits never do. Never. Very rarely do they use effective prospect research. And when you're working at Cornell, man, you learn, you get prospect research leads, you get on a plane and go see that person. I don't care where they are. If they just sold their company for $400 million, you know the local, in San Francisco too, the locals don't have prospect research. So you do. So it's like being in a dark room with the only flashlight, literally. And all you're in there looking for prospects, I know where the person is. I'm going to go get them. And I know what to say to them. I know what to talk to them about, and I know their friends. That's the difference. So we're going to talk about how to build a cycle and how to educate people you work with about this. So hard fact, 75 to 82% of giving is from individuals. Just repeat that to your board. A lot of people love foundation money and think of major gifts money as dirty. So I'm saying that out loud. A lot of people think of major gifts work, dealing with major givers, dealing with rich people, asking another person for their actual money, not foundation money, they're from their own money, as being unseemly, not right, immoral, kissing up to rich people. I hear it all the time, till I bring in a $13 million check and then they shut up. No, it's true. That's the difference, is people don't understand that it is not about kissing up, it's about finding the right match for the passions, doing your research and finding that click. You know when you see the click. Okay, when I'm in a meeting and I tell people what we're doing, and I've done my research and I know they're passionate about it, and they hear it for the first time and they go, wow, okay, yeah, there's nothing else to say. I know I'm going to get money from them. How much is the issue? So how many foundations people in here am I going to piss off today? Because that's I'm at the Foundation Center. Look at, I don't know. I mean, the problem is, and foundation officers will tell you this, is that everyone runs to their door. It's like that old Three Stooges movie where everyone goes bam to the door. And that's what happens. I almost fell down. Because that's what people think of when they think of fundraising. Write a grant. But foundations change, program officers change, and the amounts relatively are very little for what we need in our social needs, our programs, to grow them. Foundation money isn't as growable, and it's usually higher maintenance. So look at my first wife. Do they like wheelbarrows? Money. You can make massive, massive major gifts happen in a relatively 1 year, 2 year, game-changing 7 to 8 figure major gifts happen like that. With a little effort and a little smarts. Let's talk about. So this is one of the biggest things that holds major gifts back in smaller, especially where my turf is more left-wing nonprofits, is that it's not nice to do major giving. They're dealing with rich people, and somehow that's bad, and their money is bad, and it's just different. And people fear it. They fear they're going to be asked to ask for money. They fear they're going to have to kiss up for money, wine and dine. It's this attitude that's negative about fundraising. There's a lot of negative, when people think of fundraisers who aren't fundraisers, there's tons of negative attitudes about fundraisers. We're slimy and dirty. I write about this, I write op-eds about this recently. And prospect researchers are even lower on the chain. They're like dumpster diving, dirty, sneaky. When there's lots of professions out there that are doing horrific things, making video games that make kids obese and sick, making chemicals and products that are horrible for people, who are on the front page of a magazine. We're saving the darn planet, and we're often vilified. Pisses me off. But anyway, so I'm trying not to swear. I swear sometimes. So here's the problem. So you take half of your development officer's summer's time here. Oh wait, she's Yerba Buena. Oh, okay, all right. So we're like, darn. Okay, so we're quasi-competitors. That's why that was funny. Okay. So you take half of summer's time, you put it toward major giving, and then 6 months later, your board's going to go, where's my money? Come on. Didn't you ask rich people for money? So they need to understand that cycle. So get that cycle, tattoo it to their arm. Okay, have them understand, first, we've got to get to them. First, we got to find them, then we got to get to them, then we got to melt their heart and make them cry, and then we got to get to them again. And these are wealthy, powerful, successful people. They're generally not sitting around, scratching their back, having another mint julep. They have crazy schedules, okay? Even if they're just traveling. Think of that assembly line. Tell them this is an assembly line. You just don't go to Ford and buy a tire. I got a car now. You got to wait till every piece is put on, and then the car turns over and it works. So, quick example. This is a fun one, folks. So this is me. This is real time. I worked in investigative journalism for the Center for Public Integrity, where I almost blinded people. So it's investigative journalism, and they have a tiny little donor base of journalists. There's no alumni. There's no patients. Who's going to give them money, So that's what I do, is find it from scratch. And so I thought of, okay, people who care about journalism school donors. Okay, there are very few, I found out. Bummer. Okay, then I thought of, okay, these guys do investigative journalism, okay? So they need people who are into ethics, business ethics, the truth, democracy, true Americans. Awesome, look for them. So I did, and I looked and looked, and I found a lot of people. So in the past, they were heavily foundation dependent. They had like 5% of their budget being individual major giving or gifts at all. And then finally, who would care? So first thing I did was found this fellow. So he used to be on the board. Who knows who this guy is? That's Paul Volcker, 7'1", Paul Volcker, president's advisor, former chair of the Federal Reserve, extremely powerful guy. Extremely, extremely, extremely well-connected guy. I'm going to show you how well-connected. So I found out he loves the Center for Public Integrity. And then I go on this site called Muckety, muckety.com. Free, it's free. This is free. So on muckety.com, I can see Paul, and then I can see everybody he knows. If you click on this, it opens up to another one of these, and another one, and another one, and another one. So here I am, in Farragut Square in DC, studying everyone Paul knows that we want to know. Not just everyone's, okay, Paul's got lots of rich friends. Some of them are not into investigative journalism. Some of them are psycho about it. That's where I want the click to happen. Okay, this is real time, this happened. So this is a different list, but then I make a list, I make an event list. So this is a different group of people for a different event. It's not the same event list because I'm not going to give you the information. So, and I make a list from here to there. And then I asked Paul, can we host it at the 21st Century Club, your club in New York? Sure. He's covering it too, which is sweet. Okay, so we host the 21st Century Club in New York. And then we do our research into who he knows, and we find one guy who could make the game happen, who's passionate. This guy. Mr. Jeremy Grantham. So this is all in the papers. This is all public knowledge. And Jeremy's a great guy. He's about climate change and telling the truth about climate change. He's not a denier. He's on the good side. So I designed a program with my prospect researcher. Who are we going to have out of all of our journalists? We're going to have our environmental journalists, aren't we? No, we're not going to have our Washington, D.C. journalists who are famous. My boss said, let's go with those guys. Like, heck no, I've got Jeremy Grantham coming. Guess who he's going to hear about? He's going to hear from this woman, Marina. Famous reporter, did incredible things to shut down a horrific Oops, too late, too early there. A horrific factory in Peru. So she has these great stories of being arrested by the Peruvian police, shutting down this car battery factory that was in Kentucky, then moved to Peru and poisoned people. I mean, I can see this guy riveted. So the entire program was designed by research. Who was there? Who was the host? Where physically was it? What did they say? And so this gentleman here, who's a billionaire, is listening to what he wants to hear because it's what we do. And so on the floor of that event one night, he came up to my boss, and my boss's eyes went wide like Minnie Mouse. And he said, yeah, I want to give you a gift of $2.5 million. Okay, so that's real. So real major gifts giving program takes time and money. So know your cycle, knows who is in what part of your cycle is super important. So for me, a small major giving team where you should be aspiring to is 3 major gift specialists, 80-person portfolios. So I don't know what your donor base looks like. You may have one person doing this, but you always, always, always have to have these 2 factors, prospect research and prospect management, okay? So if you go to Berkeley, she wouldn't like me saying her name. So this nice woman I know who I hired runs prospect management. And all they do over the thousands and thousands of Berkeley prospects is know where they are. So some are super rich now, you're super rich now. Married to Daniel Craig, you live in the Presidio, how's that? Okay, house in Kona, that good? Okay, so some are super rich now. She's married to hunky Daniel Craig, my daughter hates you now. We profiled her, she went to Berkeley. We know that she just sold her company's stock. We know what she's into because of her public statements of benefits you attend. And so we assign you a major gifts officer, so you sit in a portfolio. So they tailor their approaches exactly to what you would be interested in and see you, and they know you when you are doing better than not. So Daniel lands a big role, hey, they're gonna come and say hi, for example. So it's not that crude sometimes, but you get the idea. Prospect management knows that she's being taken care of and can help make sure that major gifts officer is doing their job. And of course, administrative work.
Can I ask a question on this?
Shoot.
Thank you. So how often do you, if you're starting up a major gifts program, are you vetting the researcher in with the officers? Or
Ideally, it should be constant. You should have a major gifts a prospect researcher on retainer as a freelancer. So there's such a thing as a freelance prospect researcher. We'll talk about that. I'll show you where to get them. Or you could, if you really can't afford that, then do a one-time pass and then check in on it every 6 months and bring a freelancer back in to look at your list.
you would not advise having officers take that on themselves?
No, absolutely not. Okay, because it's very time-consuming. The most I do before I make a call is I'll look at their LinkedIn, I'll Google them, see if anything bad happened recently or good, and then I'll make the call.
Thank you.
But if you have your researchers, if you have your major gifts officers doing the researchers, they're spending half the time they should be out the door at their desk. Big waste of money. You usually pay them more too.
We're just a small startup
Right.
nonprofit. What if we get a freelance project researcher,
Prospect research.
prospect researcher? What products should we get from
You should. So what do you do?
them? We're supporting the building and the programs of a new El Cerrito library.
Okay. So you would find the richest people who care about El Cerrito, right? You'd find the richest businesses that care about El Cerrito. You'd find the richest people who grew up in El Cerrito. So that's what a researcher would find you. And hopefully their contact information.
We have one board member who wants to buy a LexisNexis subscription to.
Yeah, yummy.
Really?
Yeah, those are great. They're expensive, but they rock. Okay, classic major gifts myths. So these are the myths you need to combat in staff and your board to get this going. We sit down with people, just need a list of rich people, just call them up. Who's the richest people? Get them, ask them for money the first visit. The Rolodex, oh God, I hate this one. People say, oh, you know, Armando brought his Rolodex. I literally stand up and say, that's not true. I don't have a bevy of rich people who follow me around who give money to what I like. Do you? It's stupid. But I swear, the last 5 organizations I worked for, three board members in 3 separate organizations say, oh, wow, what's your Rolodex? It's like just as good as yours, my daughter. I don't know, you know. We can't afford to wine and dine. Okay, so wine and dine to them is unseemly. It's weird. It's random, and it's like I said, it's dirty fundraising. But the main idea here is that it takes cultivation. You have to find somebody. So Summer's passionate about animals. She gives it the SPCA. So I work for the SPCA. What experience can I give her that'll make her closer to us? Is it a tour? Is it seeing, the animal adoptions? What is it that I can can you meet the executive director? What experience can I give her that'll move her closer to making a gift? That's what it's about. It's called cultivation, not just going, hey, Summer, will you give us $100,000? I know you love animals. Well, I don't know enough about you. What are your financials like? Who's your executive director? Is your facility safe? I don't know. So you can't do that. All right.
Excuse me, Armando.
Yes.
I have a question.
I have a question. Go for it.
From the live streaming audience. And also, the live streaming audience can't hear the audience questions. So if you could just repeat
Bummer.
into the mic,
All right.
that
all
would be
right.
great. Or
Does the live stream audience have a name? Is it like Carol or from Toledo, Ohio or something?
we have a Jasmine and Elizabeth. There's
Whoa.
quite a few people.
All right.
Is your mic working?
Hi, live streaming
Maybe I'm not
audience.
close enough.
All right, virtually waiting.
So I also have a question from.
Oh, we have a question too. Quick, hit it.
How large of a staff would you recommend for a less than $2 million organization with about 25 major donors?
Oh, well, it depends how many more major donors you want to have. How many? It depends. I can't answer that question because there's a lot of other questions involved. Like how big is your donor base and how big can your donor base grow? If you're in a small town in Ohio, probably you're fine. But if you're in a big city where there's lots of potential for growth or it's a national cause, you could grow tremendously. So it's hard for me to say, here's how, she should email me and I'll ask her
Okay.
or him.
Great.
Question.
And what was the website you just mentioned?
It's Muckety, MUCKETY.com. And the only people you're going to find on there are big hitters. So if you're looking for your Uncle Carol, Uncle Fred, Fred won't be there. Maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe he's super rich. So here's the ugly truth about this work. It's about two things. It's about persistence and accuracy. So it's tough. You get a lot of rejections. You're treated like the Fuller Brush salesman. You're kicked down the stairs a lot. You get many more no's than you're going to get yeses. But the idea is if you're accurate, if you've done your research, if you're going after Jeremy Grantham and you're working for 6 months on this event and getting the right people and everything lined up, you're going to go bang. And budget is now in the black. Happy days, okay? That's what it's about. So accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. That's why research is so important. Number one thing small nonprofits don't do in development, they don't know anything about prospect research, okay? Yeah?
I'm curious about the tools that you use to manage your data and.
Sure. What about them? Right now I'm using DonorPro, but you can use Razor's Edge. You can use anything. I mean, I've used FileMaker in the past, back in the ancient days. Get a good database, it'll pay for itself, but rigor with a database is important because you can have the best database, nobody puts anything in. And it's literally just like Outlook. There's just names and addresses. There's no contact information. So when I meet with Summer and Daniel in the Presidio, I'll have a paragraph of notes about how they interacted, their physical reactions, what I saw that made me think they're doing well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How they reacted to my ideas, to proposals, what they're concerned about, what they're angry about, everything.
And is there anything that you use to track people on the cycle?
That's what those databases do. They send you reminders and ticklers. And also, if you have a prospect management officer or prospect researcher doubling as a prospect management officer, that's the best of both worlds. Because then you have somebody who's looking at your pipeline constantly. If you have thousands of donors, it's important to have somebody doing that. And also, personally, because the database can't challenge Summer. Summer's being lame, so you're now development officer again. If she's not doing her job and getting out the door, a prospect management officer can do that. A database really won't. So, more questions? Am I moving too fast? Okay, jump on. I don't know, what time is it? I'm going to see how am I doing here.
11:59.
All right, well, yeah, I'm doing okay. So, here's me evangelizing. If you don't do your research, if you're just going to say, hey, our board knows who we need to get money from, I know who we need to get money from. Let's see, our development officer has an idea, if you're not going to spend money, and I say spend money on prospect research, don't bother, because you won't do major gifts. You think you're doing major gifts. You'll be happy when you get that $5,000 gift, when if you had spent $5,000 on research, you would have made $1 million, literally. It's that essential. And it's the biggest haves and have-nots when we study poverty in third world countries, that we find things like clean water, access to transportation, the basics that make the difference. And I've lectured in front of development officers, small, large, big universities, and that is the number one big missing piece, is the small nonprofits don't invest in major giving. They don't invest in research. They don't pay their staff effectively to stay, and they don't do prospect research. So freelancers, part-timers, there's lots of ways to get research. A part-timer is you get a part-time staff. Freelancers, that's my website. Just look around for a little bit. You'll see things that says freelancer list. And it's a list of just pals, like 40 freelancers. There's also, on LinkedIn, I'll get to you in a few seconds, something called FRPA, which is Freelancer Prospect Research Association. If you put something on there, everybody will say hi to you in about 10 seconds. APRA is the Association of Prospect Research folks. It's like the AFP for prospect researchers. So if you go to APRA, you'll find lots of ways to find researchers. There was somebody raising their hand, and there you go.
Do these freelancers come with the access to Wealth Engine? So when you hire them, that's
Oh, yeah.
for small, I work for the Apple Ballet, we can't afford Wealth Engine.
Right.
So you're saying that's the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with Diablo Valet, you have a finite area. You guys should be stealing donors from the SF Ballet. No, you should put I have a pirate flag on my desk. I always have. Pirate flag. A Jolly Roger, because I work for small nonprofits. I steal donors from other big nonprofits who are slow and lazy. Okay? Take them. How you steal them? You give them better care, you give them a better experience, and they're a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
You can't reach them unless you colonize.
Sure. You can call them out of the blue. You can, I do cold calling a lot, but it's better to get an introduction always. But there's lots of people you'll never reach unless you cold call them. And come up with a reason of why should they care. If they live in Walnut Creek and they're giving money to the SF Ballet, why should they care about your opera? And then we're going to talk about that. So you give them a good rap, and you can train a volunteer. That's one way to do it. It's not the best, but people who say, I can't afford anything, then go to APRA, talk to a researcher, have them train them in the basics. And this is just a short-term solution, folks. Remember, I'm not advocating this in the long term. Shakay?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you worked with relationship science?
Have I worked with the relationships at RALSI? Yes, they're a great organization. So,
Would you recommend that as
yes, absolutely. It's expensive, but worth it. RALSI, it's like muckety on steroids. No, if you look up RALSI, your eyes will pop out of your sockets. It tells you who knows who. REL-SCI. REL, Relationship Science. All right. Again, when you talk about prospect research and paying for it, if you're talking to your board members about this, they will be uncomfortable. Okay? They will not like this idea. This will be funky for them. So, prospect research myths. That they're dumpster divers, right? That they're peeing into your privacy. They know it's your bank account. They know, you talk to your ex-husband still. That they're looking at your password. I mean, you would not believe the things I've heard from boards about prospect, because that's what's in the media about prospect research is nonsense, okay? When in reality, it is literally the most ethical organization. That's the head of APRA, and that's one of the best researchers on the planet who trained my researchers. And it's literally ethically bound like you would not believe. You have to sign the statement of ethics. You have to abide by them. They'll throw you out of APRA if you don't go by them. It's all public information, public knowledge, and it's wonderful. They use this kind of information for business all the time to make rich people richer, and that's cool. But when you do it to save the lives of kids or puppies or put up museums, it's terrible. So that's the dichotomy there. Okay. So we're going to talk about basics of prospect research. So who's in your own database? If there are very wealthy people sitting in your own database that are giving you $100 every year, you need to know that. If you don't know that, that's bad, because they're going to give their money elsewhere to someone who does know that. I look at similar organizations. So who lives in Contra Costa County who gives to ballet? Who, for them, a $10,000 gift is a go-away gift. It would be pretty nice for you guys. So focus on quantity of leads. So quantity of leads for me is I'm going to call as many people as I possibly can and do a lot of shoe leather work and work a list over months to get to people. So it's not about building a profile, going after one person, although Summer, Daniel, you guys are pretty obviously wealthy. You really want to get a lot of people who could potentially be wealthy. Don't make guesses, because, oh, they live in Antioch, they couldn't possibly be rich. Nonsense. Okay, look at their donor record with you, look at other factors, and then make a long list and call it and work it, and then know your rap. We're going to talk about the rap too. If you're spending all day long Googling names, that's not the way to do it, like we were talking about. If you have major gifts officers and you're asking them to do the research, it's going to bog them down. I do too much of my own research sometimes, and it's really stupid. Second thing, we talked about cold calling, is a lot of these people will not know you from Adam. They've never heard of your organization. So this is why I specialize in organizations with bad records, organizations that no one's ever heard of, organizations for funky things that people don't understand, like public school reform and investigative journalism. It's like, what's that? How unsexy can you get? Okay? It's not something you get instantly. So if you don't know how to do this, you have to learn how to do this. Either learn from somebody else who knows how. I train on this. It's not a TV commercial. But you need to know how to cold call and pick up a phone and get to strangers. Wealthy, well-protected strangers who have personal assistants, who have British accents, literally. So that's who you have to reach and get to. It's all about networking. Yes, absolutely. You want to create lists of these people to review with your board members, review with your friends, who knows who, and that's wonderful when you get a connection. When Summer will introduce you to Beyonce, that's rocks, that's great. But sometimes no one's going to know her, and you just got to go in cold. What you're looking for is a qualification meeting. So part of the cycle we saw is qualification. So qualification is, I'm going for, I don't know, Contra Costa Animal Shelter to Summer. Summer doesn't care about Contra Costa. You're a snob. Sorry about that. So she only believes in San Francisco. She doesn't want any of that bridge and tunnel crowd. And so I go to her and I sit down with her and I qualify her. I ask her, is this something you care about? And I can see she doesn't. She's like, yeah. What time is it? Okay, my agent's calling me. And she just qualified as not interested. Do I spend the rest of my time, years at that organization trying to get her involved? No. She just qualified negatively. However, it's the other way around. She's like, oh my God, my whole family's from Walnut Creek. I'd love to. When's your next event? She just qualified the other direction. So that's a qualification. So email, calling, all super important. When you're going after a large list of potential donors, the cowardly way is the email way, and it's very easy to do. However, in this culture, a lot of younger wealth are going to be very email dependent. They don't even answer their phones when their mom's calls. Shame on them, right? Shame on them. But they don't. They'll text. I was just talking with a tech millionaire who goes, my son won't talk to me. He'll text me, but he won't talk to me. It's like, you invented the phones. You did it. Now, whose ring was that? That was pretty funny. Okay, that's a nerd ring. So role of email is important. I call, and 2 weeks later, I'll send an email. Sometimes when they're younger, I'll send an email and a call. But I'll always call. An email can't answer questions. It's not nimble. It can't deal with misconceptions the way a phone call can. So if I call Ruth right off the bat and Ruth answers the phone, I can say, she'll say, but aren't you funded by the federal government? It's like, no, we're not, actually. So if she reads the email, she'll be like, they're funded by the federal government, whatever. That's the difference. Yes?
Dealing with assistants. I call a lot of super busy people.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get a meeting or trying to get them to show up to a place. So it's not until they show up that I get to talk to them, talking to their assistant,
Right.
talking to
Your
their
best friend.
mentor,
Right.
mentor
from assistants.
Not dealing with them, dealing with their scheduling.
Sure, that's all I deal with. Right now I'm dealing with about 4 billionaires, and their assistants are my best pals. So you make them your best pals. You sell them just like you sell them to prospect. Don't breeze by them. Stop, engage them like human beings, find out who they are, whether it's on the phone or face-to-face, and you treat them just like you're treating the prospect. So you cultivate them, you bring them into the organization, bring them into the cause. And I've chased people for years, and the assistants were helping me. And they finally literally tackled their bosses and brought them to me after years of, because these people are treated very poorly generally. Oh, one more question, and then I got to move.
Oh, I was just going to say that I completely agree. I used to be the executive assistant years ago. Depending on the way that I approached my boss, I pretty much have most of the influence about who he would support and who he wouldn't. And it's just because my impression of the person I talked to on the phone. So it makes a huge difference when you talk to the assistant.
Yeah. Right. So I could go into this forever. Literally, there's an hour webinar on this. There's books on this. There's no books on development, nonprofit cold calling. There's huge webinars on for-profit that are thousands of dollars. And it's stupid, in my mind, because it's not. I mean, it's something you have to learn, and it's something you can teach each other too. So having your elevator wrapped down, super important. Okay. So this is all of your board members. Everyone has to be able to say something very impressive. So right now, if I'm calling somebody for my job, I say I'm working to build the largest Mexican, Hispanic arts and culture institution in the United States of America today. 54,000 square feet, 16,000 piece collection. That's what I say. And that's my hook, and I pull them in. Because that's planting the flag, that's saying something. You know, if you're the ballet and you want to say, we had record attendance this year. You know, when lots of other ballets are declining, we're not in decline, we're growing. We're bringing in young audiences. Saying something impressive about your organization. We serve more seniors than anyone else in Alameda County. What can you say that's going to catch a very cynical, very jaded, fast-paced person's attention? Assume the worst case, okay? Assume they're not listening to you. What can you say that's going to turn their head? So, because of time, I wanted to go into this in more detail, but I don't think I can. You definitely can. But we were going to write one down for yourself right now and show it to a friend, show it to a colleague who knows your organization. It really has to be something that doesn't have internal speaker jargon. Don't assume they know an initial. Don't assume they know what palliative care is. Don't assume they've heard of your organization before. If you say ECLF, they're going to be like, oh, I don't know what that is. What is she talking about? You've already lost them. So if you get super wealthy person on the phone, you better have 2 sentences there that knock them out. That's what it's about. And I mean knock them out. And it's bragging. You have to brag. And a lot of nonprofit people don't do that well. I used to work in education reform. My gosh, none of those people can brag. It's all, well, kind of, I think so. You have to measure it. There's different paradigms. But no, say you know how to do this, you know. They're scared of putting their flag down. And so make sure anybody can understand this and they find it exciting.
Armando?
Yes.
I have another question from the live stream audience who has a client who wants to send solicitation letters to rich people whom he knows may have an interest and the ability to give but don't know him personally. Is this worth the 49 cents?
No, it's not. It's a
Okay.
kiss of death. So if you have people who want to send letters out to rich people, kiss of death. You're saying, hey, I'm coming, don't answer my call. Okay? Stupid. When I make an appointment, I don't send a confirmation letter or an email. Okay? I say, hey, I'm going to come see you. Here's my cell phone. I'll see you at the Grand Hyatt, the lobby, 2 o'clock. Look for the 6'2" Mexican. Great. Okay? I'll never email or call her or confirm. Why? Because she'll cancel. Okay? About 60%, 60% chance of canceling. Stupid thing to do. Once in a while. Not often. However, if you send letters, that's even worse. Because one, nobody reads letters, unfortunately. It's just the sad truth. And a letter can't answer a question. And it's cowardly. Call them up. Okay? That's what you're paid to do. If you're a staff person to raise money, call them up. If you're scared of doing it, then don't do it. Find another job. Okay? Because development officers, it takes courage. It's scary work. calling strangers, getting rejected, having a number to reach, it's not easy work. It takes lots and lots of guts. The Greeks call it thrasos. That's probably swearing in Greek. So why does this not have a title on this? You want to ask this? Because I just made this slide like 5 seconds ago, literally. Getting media really, really helps support a major gifts campaign. If you get a big write-up in the Contra Costa Times that's full of positives, that's awesome. It's going to help the Diablo Ballet legitimize, set the message, open the door just a little bit for you, okay? Get a story that's not, hey, maybe the Diablo Ballet will fail. Maybe it'll do great. That's not the story you want, okay? And if you have a reporter who's going to do that for you, don't say, it's okay, have a great day. You want the reporter who's going to like be, yeah, Diablo Ballet is going to rock, best season ever. Why aren't you giving them money, you fools? That's what the story you want. Reporters will say, I'm not going to write you a puff piece, but they do all the time, okay? Like, we're not going to do a puff piece for you, but they do, okay? I've seen it all the time. And today, if you go to Morning Edition, who heard my piece on Morning Edition? I say it's my piece because it's my idea, and I called the reporter, and I made it work. Morning Edition, the Mexican Museum, big story on Morning Edition. Thanks. That was a fun one to pull off. The story of Guadalupe Rivera and Nelson Rockefeller's daughter, Anne Rockefeller, working together, $2-3 million galleries. So that's the story, and it's already making me money. Yay! Thanks for the extra yay. So this is Legolas's quiver. If you knew that was Legolas's quiver, you are a massive nerd. Okay? Not that I knew it. No. So we can practice that. I can't practice that. I don't have the time to practice pitches. So here's how you find rich people who already know and love your organization. It's called a screening. So there's electronic screenings, which we all know about, and there's old-fashioned screenings, which I started out doing. So you create a simple review list. So your researcher works their brains off, finds you 300 people who love ballet in the Diablo Valley area, who are crazy about it, some of them who give you money and some of them who don't give you money. And you guys, your staff, don't know who these people are. You've never met them. So you create this list, one list. And I say one list because you never email this thing to anybody because it's your property, you paid for it. If you email it to, not to Summer, let's pick on Marlene. Marlene's going, wow, look at all these rich people with their phone numbers and emails. I'm going to give this to my daughter's school. They're fundraising. Kill you. Okay, you just gave away your property. So you take this one list. Sometimes I put it in plastic so nobody will take it. Literally, it's cheesy, I know. And I put it in front of Shakay, who's rich and is giving us money, and say, do you know? Yeah, I know Carol, I know Marlene, I know Summer, sure. Would you introduce us? Sure. And you work your list that way, and you take it around, literally, and you mark it off, but you don't leave her a list. You don't, oh, I can't talk to you. Can you just email it to me? No, I can't. Because that's your and that's your secret list. You don't want me to get it, that's for sure. That's bad. Physically, take it to these people, take it to your past board members. I took mine to Paul Volcker. I said, here's who I want to invite. No, absolutely, and you should invite Leonard too. But you're kidding me. You know him? Sure I do. I'll invite him. He's on my cell phone, no problem. That's how you want to build a list, you know? So, you compile who knows who can make introductions. This is an Excel report, folks. This isn't, some fancy technology. And it's super groovy when your board helps. When your board knows who you're trying to reach, and they run into Summer at some fancy event with Daniel, they're like, oh yeah, she's on our list. So I'm gonna suck it up, go and say, hi, hey Summer, I work for the Diablo Valley Ballet. We know you know. You have a shack out in Walnut Creek or something like that. You're a snob, remember? So remember, you want to work with the person who's giving you the intro. So if you're being introduced to a very wealthy person, you want to make sure, hey, I'm sending her this note. Can you see this note for Summer? Is that okay? Do you want to be part of this meeting? Do you want to make the call? Do you want to introduce me? Do you want me just to drop your name? How do you want to tailor it so they're comfy? So that the next time they do this for you, they're like, yeah, I totally trust her. She totally was sensitive to my relationship. And they'll do it for you again and again. You won't tick them off. Qualification. Wow, I'm shaking here. There's no earthquake, folks. I think it's me. Oh, darn it. So it's not me. So again, the qualification meeting is a quick meeting where you sit down with them, Sometimes they're half an hour. And your job is to gauge what they need, what they want, how much education do they need? Are they ready to go right now? So I visited this guy who worked for Berkeley in Maryland, who was a Berkeley alum. I remember his name. I don't know if I could say it. Probably couldn't say it. He runs a huge company that invented the satellite dish. He personally invented the satellite dish, Hughes Network Systems. I remember it. So I sit down with this guy, never been in contact with the university whatsoever. Cold, icy cold call, never talked to him. His secretary set it up. Giant office, all kinds of fun tech. Behind his desk is a ratty old moth-eaten Berkeley pennant with Cal framed, this beautiful frame. It's like, oh, he just qualified. He loves the university, no doubt. And we sat down and he was, where have you been? I've been 25 years, I've been successful, and Cal's never called me. It's like, yes, sir, I'm here. Let's get started. That's what he said. There's another one. But and then, I can't say his name. It's probably not ethical. So with this gentleman, he was a good qualification. So I said, who else do you think would care? Here's the list of tech people on the East Coast I know. And he goes, don't give me this list. Give me the list of, he's an East Indian fellow, East Indian Americans who went to Cal who made a lot of money. Maybe I'll know them. And he knew an even richer guy than that, who gave me $5 million. So that's how I got to him, because this gentleman made a call and just said, hey, you know what? I met this guy. He's not going to twist your arm. That's what he said on the phone. I was right there. And he'll talk with him. I'm going to give the money. So I was like, how much, man? All right. There's a dear friend of mine who's not with us anymore, the great Barlow Ware. He worked for Cornell. He's the first guy to do $1 million campaign in American history in 1948 for Cornell University. Go Big Red. So Barlow is the guy who taught me. He used to say, Armando, a lot of gin he drank in his life. Armando, put their hands in the mud. And at first I was like, what are you saying, old man? So what he meant by put their hands in the mud was give them a cultivation experience that'll knock them out, okay? So when we had Mr. Grantham there at the 21st Club, he heard from those intrepid reporters that would make you all cry and give you goosebumps. Talking about being thrown into a Peruvian prison with drug dealers, and you were a reporter, and you couldn't call your family and tell where you were for 3 weeks. That's, wow, Knock them out. If you have a great story, knock them out. When I was at the San Francisco Opera, Miss Ballet, I'm talking to you. You got your phone in front of you. But check this out. This is one of the best events I ever did, was on the stage of the San Francisco Opera. Okay, I don't know if they still do them anymore. I hope they do. But this will give you an idea of how to make somebody, how to get the right feelings going. So it's not just some glamorous thing where you get your picture taken and you're in the Nob Hill Gazette. So you come into the opera, and they take you to the backstage. So you walk in the backstage, and there's a big curtain where the stage is, and there's the backstage, and then there's mannequins with costumes. And there's the costume designers. You get to talk to them. And then there's the sets, beautiful sets. And there's the set designers, and you get to chat with them. And then there's Karita Matila, the great Finnish soprano, telling you why she hits the high note there. And for 45 minutes, you're in opera. Okay, you're not talking about your vacation in South Africa or your husband's back surgery. You're in opera land, right? And then at the right moment, the bell goes bing, 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 and that stage, the curtain comes up, and there on the set of Karita Kabinova is all your tables with candles and flowers on set.
Oh, wow.
So that's, and translate that for whatever you do. That is people being emotionally moved to say, oh God, I love this. What can I do to help you? Okay? So events, tours, symposiums. What can you do that puts, and remember, we all have staff. Some of us have EDs or presidents who are boring. Be careful, okay? You don't want to put your boss up there if they're going to bore them to tears. You want to put the face of your work up front as long as it's ethical. Because you can't put sick kids up front. You can't put dogs and cats who are sick. But you can put whoever is your face. So at the Center for Public Integrity, my boss was okay. My reporters were way better, okay? My reporters would make people cry. So that's who you pay for. You pay for Indiana Jones. You pay for the reporter who's going to make incredible things happen. And that's what our face is. Before we were putting, let's talk about investigative journalism and the paradigm. And it was like, oh man, no, brother. I want Marina up there, So think about how you can make events that are engaging and thoughtful. And that's a whole other, discussion unto itself. But be creative with your events. Make them fun. Okay, so I think we'll go into this more detail. So heart and head. Yes?
Just one question about, so from a budgetary standpoint, if you still, have to go to a foundation to get money to raise money, it takes money to make money.
Right.
How do you justify all the necessary expenditures? I want to say, I do this, and a lot of people were like, oh my God, why do you spend so much money? Why do you fly here and there? But it's to meet those people.
Right.
And is it actually possible to make that part of your budget? Hey, yes. I
Sure it
want
is.
to go to Las Vegas
Absolutely.
during
That's what this entire thing is about. But the difference is when you make a home run or even a good line drive, you've got to let everyone know. You have to fly that flag. Look, we made a $300,000 gift. Here's how this happened. Here's how much money I spent to make this happen. Took him to lunch, took him to dinner, sent him these things. It took 2 years, but here's a $300,000 gift. Okay? Do we want to replicate that, or do we want to keep getting $500 gifts? It's that simple. But you got to, and this is what development officers, nonprofit people, we don't brag. We have to go to our board and say, we raised this money. Didn't happen by accident. I didn't whip out my Rolodex and say, hey, rich person, give me $300,000. Boom, it happens. Because that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, oh, yeah, we made a call and solicited. They're not thinking, oh, all this cultivation, all the boring stories you had to hear, all the annoying trips at the airport you had to do, all the letters you had to rewrite 15 times. They're not thinking about any of that, okay? And they're not thinking it took 2 years of ripping their hair out dealing with their annoying assistant, okay? They don't know about any of that, but you have to tell them. So they know, I got to pay for that, and it takes time. So let's think about events a little bit here. So draws, these are your draws. You want to make it unique, you want to make it fun, you want to make it exciting, you want to make it exclusive. Okay, you want to make it something that not everybody and their brothers is invited to. Oh gosh, I wish I could go into this into more. Here's some examples of events I've done. So in terms of event analysis, let me give you one more example. And this is not my brag fest. This is just a good example of getting people. So I worked for Cornell, and we had tons of alumni in Seattle, and they had failed event after failed event. They brought the dean of engineering up there. 8 people showed up on the Microsoft campus to come see him. 8. He was furious. So I was assigned to create an event for there that would knock him out. So I visited dozens and dozens of Cornell alums in Seattle, and I saw 2 things over and over and over and over again, which was kids and sci-fi and tech, again and again and again. So I put it together in my brain, and I thought of Bill Nye the Science Guy, Cornell alum, lives in Seattle. Mars Rover Project. So the little Mars Rover, that's not little, the Mars Rover project was unique to Cornell. They were working on it in space sciences. So then I thought of the Seattle Air and Space Museum. And the head of that was also a Cornellian. Wonderful. Then I thought of Hasbro. Head of Hasbro Toys was a Cornellian. So if you're Howard Lincoln, the head of Nintendo, who never comes to a Cornell event in 1,000 years, your 7-year-old runs in with an invite from Bill Nye with a little Mars Rover toy in the bubble that says, come run, operate the Mars Rover on the surface of Mars here in Seattle with Bill Nye. And you have a board meeting, but you're going. And here he comes in there. It's like, who's the guy who started this? I was like, me? He goes, I have a board meeting and I'm here. I was like, oh, welcome, sir. Come on in. Here's Bill Nye. Bill, get over here, man. Treat this kid, God. So that's an idea of what's going to get them, what's going to get to their heart, not just, and it's a draw, it's exclusive, it's fun. But there's lots of other things I've done before. You just heard about the backstage of the Opera House. So, very important is the Friends of Sally event. Be aware of it. So you're a rich board member. I know who we need to invite. My friends, So the friends adore Sally. Can they give you money? Do they care about ballet? Who knows? You're going to put a ton of effort into 35 people into a house party, and then you're going to get a couple hundred gifts, a couple $100 gifts. No, you want to do your research and tell Sally, please, Sally, bring some of your friends, but we have a list we want to work with. Maybe you know some of these people. And so you bring your list to Sally's house. That's the difference. In the quickest nutshell I can do, because I've got, 5 minutes? Sarah? Okay. In your database, but if you're too chicken to call them, you don't have the right skills, you need to practice, have them. So once you see them, you can say, hey, will you come to our dinner at Summer's house with Daniel Craig and the Presidio? Sure, I will. Absolutely. Not to meet you, Summer. Sorry about that. Ask for gifts based on solid education. So do you know that we've moved her along enough, that she's had the right experiences, and that it's, sometimes they'll say, when are you guys gonna ask me? That's terrible. When I was at Cornell, they used to say apple from the tree. That was the term, which meant they are ready to be solicited because the apple falls from the tree. Okay, I was one of the few guys who had a code to solicit, like 007, that was not sexy, but I could solicit. But the rest of the time, it was volunteers who were made to solicit. Staff didn't solicit. So, but we cultivated them so they were even a volunteer trained could get a solicitation out of them, get a gift out of them. But that's what you want. You want to be able to take care of them afterwards, ask the right gifts. This is the essential slide right here. If you follow this, you'll go a long way. So here's 2 upcoming webinars of mine. I've got one, too, on using LinkedIn to prospect. If you look at my website, you'll see it. That's brand new. These are on my website, so you can find them. Click on them. They do cost money. I think that's like $48, $50. I can't remember. So that's that. And I do consult. I do help small organizations, especially, build major gifts programs. A lot of fun. I get to do one a year. Woohoo. And that's it. And there's my website, and there's my email, AEZ2, that's a 2. And you will get this.
And then go upstairs for some snacks. On the 6th floor of the library, you can take the elevator or 6 flights of stairs. What else do I want to share with you? Yes, so our librarian, Kate, will be demonstrating some tools in our library that are available. So you're welcome to join for that demo.